Imagine a city German generals believed could resist for months. A city surrounded by concrete rings, flooded ditches, steel, and fire. A city where every street was a firing line, every basement a bunker, every bridge a death trap. Now imagine the city collapsing in just 4 days. 70,000 prisoners, thousands of captured guns, and a fortress that had been preparing for war for more than a century erased. This is not the story of Berlin. This is the battle that made Berlin inevitable. In April 1945, the Red Army faced its last obstacle in East Prussia, a fortress called Königsberg. And what happened here proved one terrifying truth. By the end of the war, Soviet warfare had evolved into something the Germans could no longer counter. By early 1945, the Third Reich was collapsing, but in East Prussia, collapse turned into catastrophe. The Red Army launched a massive winter offensive, designed not just to push the front, but to destroy it completely. Soviet forces smashed through German defenses with shocking speed. Entire formations were bypassed, surrounded, and sealed off before they even understood what was happening. Supply roads vanished under artillery fire. Radio communication broke down. Columns froze, burned, or surrendered. By the end of January, forward units of the 3rd Belarusian Front reached the frozen Baltic coast. And with that single movement, East Prussia was cut off from the Reich. Hundreds of thousands of German soldiers were now trapped. No retreat, no relief, no escape. But then the Soviet command suffered a sudden and devastating loss. General Ivan Chernyakhovsky, one of the youngest and most gifted Soviet commanders, was killed suddenly by artillery fire. The shock was enormous. Command passed to Marshal Alexander Vasilevsky. Unlike many frontline commanders, Vasilevsky was not driven by speed or glory. He was a strategist, cold, precise, ruthlessly logical. He understood one thing immediately. A rushed frontal assault against fortified German groupings would be a massacre. So he chose a slower, deadlier solution. Instead of charging forward, he isolated German pockets and destroyed them one by one. Artillery pulverized defensive zones. Aviation erased supply hubs. Entire German armies simply ceased to exist. By late March, the 4th German Army was trapped in the Heiligenbeil pocket. There, it was annihilated. Only one target remained. Königsberg was not just another city. It was the heart of Prussian militarism. Built over centuries, it was designed to survive siege warfare. 3 defensive rings, 15 major forts, interlocking fire zones, water-filled ditches, reinforced concrete capable of absorbing direct hits from heavy artillery. Each fort could fight independently, even completely surrounded. German commanders believed Königsberg could hold for months. On paper, they were right. So the Soviets prepared something different. To crack 19th century fortifications, modern weapons were not enough. The Red Army deployed massive 280mm BR-5 howitzers, slow, heavy monsters whose shells could shatter concrete that had survived decades. Alongside them stood the legendary 203mm B-4 howitzers, known to German soldiers as Stalin's sledgehammers. But raw firepower was only half the plan. This battle would be rehearsed before it was fought. Every German fort was photographed from the air. Every trench was mapped. Every intersection was studied. Soviet engineers constructed a full-scale physical model of Königsberg. Commanders walked through it for weeks. They planned routes, marked fire zones, practiced assaults down to individual buildings. This was not improvisation. This was urban warfare as a science. Still, the Germans were not passive. By early April, Königsberg reconnected with the Samland Group. The defense stabilized. Nearly 100,000 defenders, 4,000 guns, more than 100 tanks. Veteran Wehrmacht units stood alongside Volkssturm, militia, teenagers, and old men. Fortress Commandant Otto Lasch was confident. He publicly declared that Königsberg could hold for months. But the weather intervened. Fog and rain grounded Soviet aviation. The assault was delayed, and then the bombardment began. From April 3rd onward, the ground never stopped shaking. Heavy artillery pounded the city day and night. When the clouds finally lifted, Soviet aircraft filled the sky. Entire districts vanished behind smoke and flame. On April 6th, the ground assault began. Infantry advanced behind a creeping barrage. Tanks followed. Elite storm groups moved ahead, sappers, flamethrower operators, submachine gunners. The forts were not stormed directly. They were isolated, sealed, neutralized. At Fort Charlottenburg, artillery failed. Shells bounced off the walls. So Sergeant Ivan Sidorov and his engineers crawled forward under machine gun fire. They gathered captured German mines and stacked them against the fort's base. The explosion cracked the structure open. This method spread rapidly across the battlefield. By April 7th, over 1,200 tons of bombs were dropped in less than an hour. German command collapsed. On April 8th, Soviet troops crossed the Pregel River. Königsberg was cut off completely. By April 9th, Soviet storm groups were fighting near University Square. Otto Lasch understood the reality. Every additional hour meant only more dead civilians. He defied Hitler's orders. He surrendered. In just 81 hours, a fortress built to last months collapsed. 70,000 prisoners, thousands of captured guns, and Soviet losses far lower than expected. This was not luck. This was mastery. The fall of Königsberg shattered the last illusion. It proved that Berlin was only a matter of time. From chaos in 1941 to precision warfare in 1945, the road to Berlin was open. And the war's end was no longer a question of if, only when Königsberg fell faster than anyone in Berlin expected. A fortress built to resist for months collapsed in just days. And with its fall, the last shield of East Prussia was gone forever. For the Red Army, this was not just a victory. It was proof that the war had changed. That experience, preparation, and precision could now break even the strongest defenses. Just weeks later, the same methods would be used on a far greater prize, Berlin itself. But here's the real question. Was the fall of Königsberg inevitable, or was it the result of a level of planning the Germans could no longer match? Write your answer in the comments. If you want more deep, cinematic breakdowns of the final battles of the Second World War, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us, because some fortresses don't just fall. They decide the fate of history.